Josh, how are you, sir?
Good, Dave. How are you?
I'm well. So, a little bit of a football game there going on Saturday, as you may have heard. The word is that Bryce Young, I keep hearing this, heard this from Ryan Brown on the show yesterday, heard this from Chris Landry, who we just had on Landry Football. Bryce Young is going to play. How much does that affect the point spread in your mind? Okay, let's three scenarios. Plays, he's just fine. Plays, he's not 100% healthy. And then Jalen likes to fumble mill roll. Those three scenarios, poor kid. Um, those three scenarios, how does that affect the point spread, do you think?
Well, I haven't heard anything that makes me think Bryce Young just fine is an option.
Right.
So I would remove that from the table. So I think we're talking about Bryce Young most likely playing and having to play through whatever kind of pain tolerance he has to deal with and put up with, and hope that he can go for 4 quarters. We don't know that that's the case, but I think that's where the conversation is. I mean, if it's Milrow and then maybe Ty Simpson, I think that's what would change the conversation in terms of the point spread, because the confidence on Tennessee's side, I think, would grow and would make that money line even more interesting. So, no matter the quarterback situation, I think Alabama is the favored football team against Tennessee because of the talent across the board. But Tennessee's chance to get a win this week is very real because the way Tennessee has played, the advantage that Tennessee can actually have at quarterback this week because of what Hendon Hooker is doing, and Tennessee being at Neyland Stadium. This is absolutely the toughest test going in that Alabama has to get ready for so far this season.
You mentioned Ty Simpson. And for those that don't know, he's the highly touted young man who did not play in place of Bryce Young last week. Jalen Milrow did. So, have you heard anything that if they have to go second string, that because of Jalen Milrow's performance off A&M, that they could go Ty Simpson direction?
Yeah, I think there is buzz coming out of Tuscaloosa that Ty Simpson could be an option, not necessarily to be the guy. They may play both guys, get into the game, stick with one versus the other. I mean, there are all kinds of options that are on the table, I think, for a coaching staff in this kind of situation if the starter is unavailable. Milrow is a fantastic athlete. He doesn't take a backseat to anybody when he walks on the field athletically, but he's inexperienced at that position, as Ty Simpson is as well. Did not take care of the football last week, as you referred to, and I'm sure that's not something uh, that grows the confidence on Nick Saban's side. And if they're trying to throw the football, which is something you need to do against Tennessee's defense, they might look at Ty Simpson as an option there. So, where things stand right now, I think Alabama is preparing to try to have Bryce Young based on what other people are saying, but that's not guaranteed, and it's not guaranteed for 4 quarters. So if not, you have to come up with plan B and possibly plan C, and I think that could include Ty Simpson. And what a storyline that would be. The freshman who grew up a Tennessee fan, and I think at one point was planning to probably go to Tennessee, that ends up at Alabama, potentially playing in Neyland Stadium as a true freshman for Tennessee's top rival. Yeah, plenty of stories out of that one, if it
Yeah,
happens.
they also have a linebacker with some Tennessee ties. Alabama does. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
O's in his name. You probably know who that is. But yeah, there are a lot of ties back and forth. So yesterday I'm recording our podcast with John Adams, and it's brought to you by Vols Automotive Group and Big Orange Phillies. And halfway through it, this is probably about 11 o'clock. I was like, John, it sounds like you're going to pick Tennessee. And I just the way he was talking, he goes, yeah. Like I was just supposed to naturally know that he was going to pick Tennessee. And then later in the day, you have Paul Feinbaum and some guy named Mad Dog Russo who likes baseball. And they're all picking Tennessee. And Nick Saban responds, all this noise about
Mm-hmm.
picking Tennessee, does it affect the game at all in your mind?
Well, it's not supposed to. The only thing that causes me pause there is we're talking about Nick Saban's football team. And we've had too many examples of even the slightest hint of negativity on the outside being uttered about the Crimson Tide, and then it becomes tasty rat poison, according to Nick Saban. And when word gets to Will Anderson and to Dallas Turner and all the athletes there on the defensive side for Alabama who can make big plays, then it's going to scare you a little bit. And Jahmyr Gibbs in the open field is as scary of an offensive weapon as there is in college football. And if Nick Saban's able to help get those guys dialed in just a little bit more and focus a little bit more, and you might say, why wouldn't they be focused? They're taking on a top 10 team. You saw them last week fumble the ball 4 times. So that's a huge part of this game. So it does give me pause in this case. And yeah, part of the pause too would be, Dave, I'm kind of leaning that way. I haven't picked Tennessee to beat Alabama since 2007, and Alabama won that game opening kickoff, went onside kick, won the game down in Tuscaloosa, and we haven't seen Tennessee beat Alabama since then. I haven't really even considered picking Tennessee to win the game against Alabama since then, but this week I'm considering it, and I'm leaning that way.
Wow. You, Paul, and John, it's just a trio of smart guys picking the Vols. This just doesn't against Alabama. It feels like I'm in some sort of bizarro world.
Yeah, viewers and listeners should be more afraid right now, probably. But I mean, that is where it's trending, and the Bryce Young aspect here has to be factored in. If you told me if he had not been injured 2 weeks ago and we knew that he was 100% good to go, I don't know that I would have that thought. But I think you're either seeing Bryce Young play at less than 100%, or you're seeing backup quarterbacks having to go on the road to help lead an offense that has not been clicking on all cylinders, not even close to it so far this season, against a Tennessee offense that has been. And that's not Alabama's advantage. Their advantage is speed and talent across the board, and that absolutely matters. And typically in this game, we're talking about the turnover battle. Tennessee absolutely has to win it to have a shot. We're spending more time talking about that on Alabama side. Now, last week, Tennessee had the ball hit the ground a few times from Tennessee's offense, and the possession stayed on Tennessee's side. Do they get that lucky bounce this week? Josh Heupel, I promise, is preaching to his players, let's not find out. Let's not put the ball on the ground, because if Alabama ends up with the ball more times than we do, then we're not going to win. That's a pretty clear message, I promise, from Tennessee's head coach this week.
Cooper Mays on our YouTube channel. By the way, we want you to like, subscribe, and share. I run the analytics. 80% of our viewers haven't subscribed yet. So let's go ahead and do that so you get notifications when stuff goes on, because Cooper Mays and Jacob Warren are awesome to talk to. And Cooper talked about recovering one of those fumbles by Hendon Hooker. And he said, I was quick like a cat. Did I look quick? Did he look quick, Josh?
Well, probably not to Tennessee fans, because when the ball hits the ground and your team is the one that's lost it, time stops probably and really slows down. Like, it's hanging out there. But heads up play. Honestly, those plays win games, especially these kinds of games, or allow you to blow out LSU and keep them from having a chance to come back and win the game. So all credit to them, because those plays end up making a huge difference. Those will get you big pats on the back in the film room. I know that.
Yeah, I told him he looked quick. He seemed like he appreciated the compliment.
Oh, if he asked me, I'd tell him 100%. I have a policy. I compliment linemen, guys that hit 300-pounders in the SEC. I give them compliments a lot.
Excuse me. One of the funniest stories. I can't remember the lineman you were on with. Excuse me, but he was talking about how he would win against you in a fight. And you said you would just run. And he said, well, I ran a 4.9 in the combine. So
David Ligon. Yeah, David Ligon. Yes. Offensive guard and center for Tennessee in the mid-2000s. And he was a 4-star athlete out of high school. And, yeah, made that point that, I think he pointed out, you'll never lift nearly as much as I can. But you keep running. Eventually, I'm going to get to you, because I'm actually faster than you and twice your size. And it was a good point. So I was a lot nicer to David after that. David's the nicest guy in the world, too.
He is. Okay. Now, I'm sorry. I don't know what's wrong with my voice. So outside of the Bryce Youngs, the Hendon Hookers of the world, the Jahmyr Gibbs, who's the most important player that's on that next tier down?
On either side for Alabama?
Either side. I was actually, and I don't even know if he's on the next tier, but I was going to say Byron Young, because I think they have to have a pass rush. He doesn't have the notoriety nationally of the other guys. So I don't know even know if he's on the next tier, but that's who I would go with. That's the type of guy I'm looking for.
Yeah, those guys, Jeremy Banks, the linebacker position, because their roles are really going to matter here, because I think Jahmyr Gibbs will be so important both running the ball and as a receiver. And, when we talk about Tennessee's pass coverage, that conversation applies to the secondary and to the linebacker position. So Byron is a good name because he is a difference-making player. Those guys up front need to play better according to Tennessee's defensive line coach, Rodney Garner, but part of that's because of the standard that he holds. And by the way, he's somebody that helps Tennessee this kind of week. He's very familiar with going up against Alabama football teams. So he knows what it takes to be successful in this kind of game. But Byron Young is, I think, an NFL player on Tennessee's defense and a guy that walks out on the field and in no way is or should be intimidated by the talent that Alabama has. So I would point to him. Linebackers, though, not getting beaten in coverage and making the right plays. I think that's really going to matter in this kind of game as well. So all those guys up front, they matter so much because they have to help the guys on the back end for Tennessee's defense. Because no matter who's playing quarterback for Alabama, they've looked at film and said, okay, we can, if we get our quarterback time, no matter who that guy is, we can win some matchups there against Tennessee's defense.
Let me ask you a really difficult question. How does this Tennessee team respond that is sky high right now, that has a lot of confidence? I would argue maybe a little overly confident at times, but I said that before LSU and I was wrong. So how does this Tennessee team respond if they lose and if they win? Both.
Well, by the way, I think they should be as confident as they seem because I think that's taking on the personality of their head coach, and I think it's working. If they win, you have UT Martin next. So you don't have any kind of letdown factor. That's great. I continue to think the schedule is laid out as well as you could possibly ask for if you're Josh Heupel 2 weeks after the Florida game. So you have time to celebrate, time to heal up, and then get ready for a road trip to LSU. Obviously, you're going to turn around and be focused for Alabama. Then you have a tune-up and a mental break game again next week before Kentucky, which is an important game for sure to close out the month of October. So if Tennessee wins, I think they're sky high. This town is elevated off of earth. It's floating in the sky if Tennessee is able to get a win, and that would lead to conversations, the losing streak being over, the playoff being real, chance to win the SEC championship, and everybody in the nation talking about Tennessee. Tennessee loses. I'd like to know how. Like if Alabama comes in and wins by 21 points, well then that's going to be awfully deflating. If Tennessee is competitive for 4 quarters and loses the game, it'll be disappointing, and it should be disappointing. But it doesn't change anything about the structure of the program and what this team is doing, what it's capable of doing, and certainly the chance to get to 10 wins, which I think anybody would have taken at the beginning of the season. So there's just a massive opportunity for Tennessee. Even if Tennessee loses, it can be a successful position that Tennessee finds itself in through 6 games. But the player's mindset is let's go win, not show that we can compete with Alabama. Let's go beat Alabama. And that should be the mindset because for the first time in a while, they have a real chance going in to do that straight up.
I guess the question I was asking, if Tennessee loses, will there be a hangover like the guy in that picture over your left shoulder had?
We're not going to have that talk.
Flew my rear.
Not on my watch.
That was not a bleeping flu. He was partying and he had a hangover.
Well, see, that ridiculous theory has been out there for quite some time. And, of course, The Last Dance said it was more food poisoning than look, the partying aspect of Michael Jordan's career is well documented. That's a man that knows how to deal with a hangover and not be physically shut down 24 hours after. So, plus, ever heard of an IV? He would have been good to go if he was hungover. That you're not falling in the arms of your teammate after destroying your opponent just because you partied the night before.
Josh will not be hungover on the Sports Animal, where you can hear him from noon to 3. And his appearance brought to you in part by Zool Beer Company. Go to ZoolBeer.com, XULBeer.com. They have fantastic parking downtown, and they've got worldwide award-winning craft beer, which it's only taken me 3 months to be able to say that clearly. But Josh, the beer's darn good at Zool.
It's terrific. Ton of options. Love the IPA choices that you have there. So great design, great beer, great selection, whatever you're looking for, because people have different tastes when it comes to beer. No doubt about it. Zool has covered all of that.
Yep. I'll stop by and drop you off some more before too long. I'll be up there next week. So, Josh, have a good week and enjoy the game.
Same to you. Same to everybody. That was my thought going into this week. Kind of wrote about it as well. But this conversation hasn't taken place in a long time. 2016, there was talk of it, but you could walk around the field before the game and realize this is going to be a beatdown. Tennessee doesn't have any players left from the Texas A&M game. Everybody's hurt. This week, Tennessee goes in as an underdog, but a chance to win. So I'm glad for Tennessee fans that they get to be a part of this conversation. Can we beat Alabama? They haven't asked that much here in the last 15 years. I'm glad that's changed.
You could probably guess who this is, but I don't think most people could. But a coach under Dooley said to me one time when there was a little bit of hype that Tennessee could beat Alabama, this coach came up to me and pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, Dave, do you go down on the field before the game?" And I said, "No, I'm usually up in the press box getting ready." He goes, "Hey, man, for all those people that are picking Tennessee to upset or picking us," he was talking about himself, to upset Alabama, "come down and see how big those dudes are for Alabama." I mean, there
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
there was a huge differential that is somewhat still there, but it's not as significant as it was in the past as far as from a talent standpoint.
Yeah, no doubt. Tennessee has real talent on the field. There's more to find in the recruiting trail, but I mean Tennessee has a bunch of guys that are going to go to the NFL. Not as many as Alabama, but they have a bunch of guys that are going to go to the NFL and that can compete in the SEC. I mean, two of those guys that are a part of your show on a regular basis, Cooper and Jacob Warren. They don't walk out on the field and look at what Alabama has and be intimidated at all. Previously, here in the last 15 years, that's happened too many times. That's not the case right now.
But I appreciate it. Sports animal and all over the place, and a great column that he wrote about Tennessee fans deserve this. That may be slightly dated, but it's definitely worth a Google. I might even repost it today. It was very, very well done, and it's on offthehooksports.com. And maybe we can get something else out of you this week. We'll see. How about that?
Hey, you got it. We'll see. Thanks, Dave. Enjoyed it as always.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. I know Josh has stuff to do.